Hi guys, Kit, and I am super excited to be back through the breach playing Malifaux for the first time in 6 years. This is a friendly battle report between me and Grrrfranky, who also hasn't played in multiple years, and we're basically both just relearning the game. And honestly, this is a video for my own benefit, to look back through, make sure I was playing the rules properly, and cement my understanding of what my crew actually does. So if you want to keep watching and point out mistakes and give me tips, be my guest, but otherwise it's going to be a little bit self-indulgent. Terrain. So I'm a little bit unfamiliar with how the new terrain works. The houses are probably like impassable, height 5 or 6. They grant cover. Little boxes and barrels are height 1 and 2, where it makes sense, like traversable, I don't even know if that's a thing. Likely grant some sort of cover. The big rock on the left is similar to the houses. This is the big wheel and the two big platforms, wherever they are. In the corners we've got 2 forests where in our deployment zones, and then on the other corners is severe terrain. In the middle there's 2 little pits, that terrain feature. We decided that would be a nice hazardous severe marker. That seemed like quite a decent amount of terrain to me. I don't know if it's too much or too little. It would be really nice to have an app that auto-generates some Malifaux terrain, so if you're handy with that stuff and you're watching, please do that for me, it would be most appreciated. Yeah, so both myself and my opponent picked out our crews before we saw the terrain or any of the strategies and schemes for the game. From the left, I have got a Cavern Nephilim, Gwyll, Marathine with inhuman reflexes, an Urn Bearer, Kastore Fervent with inhuman reflexes, Athorak, and another Cavern Nephilim. My opponent has the Scales of Justice, or whatever they are, a Guild Steward hiding behind the Pale Rider, Lady Justice with the lead-lined coat, a Domador de Cadaveres, a Lone Rider, an Exorcist, and a Death Marshal. Oh, one thing to note, I think we're playing Gaining Grounds 3. I told you we were new at this, and I'm pretty sure we haven't picked the most recent Gaining Grounds version. But I took so long working out how to sign into the damn app, which is really good by the way. I'm just thick. And once we'd finally got the game set up, we couldn't be bothered to go back and redo things, so I'm pretty sure this is Gaining Grounds 3. The strategy is guard the stash. The guild have selected Assassinate, because Lady Justice, why would you not pick that scheme? And Load 'em Up, where he has to drop a load of scheme markers on my table half. Well, it can be any type of marker, but he's chosen scheme markers. And yes, my opponent did end up regretting that, and did say he should have taken Vendetta. For my own part, I have gone for Spread Them Out, because I was thinking, well, my Cavern Nephilim are going to go down the flanks, try to get those flanking markers. I remember Neverborn trying to face Guild in a straightforward punch-up being a bad time, and so I was thinking I probably shouldn't handshake a punch-up in the centre of the table, and at least make him choose between focusing his attention in the centre or spreading out his forces, like the name of the scheme suggests, because my thinking was I would probably have more of an advantage taking on his stuff in 1s and 2s, and I don't know if that's true, but that was my thinking. And then in completely the opposite direction, I didn't know what the second one I should choose was, so I was just like, Kastore's a big beefy boy, let's see if he can do damage. And I was thinking Lady Justice was probably going to go moving quite aggressively. I was thinking, I could try to steal her away with Kastore into a big clump of my guys and beat her up. So I want to try to test out that mechanic in any case. So that's why I went for what I went for. So we go into the first turn. That's my hand. I'm a little bit self-conscious about my hands because looking back on my old videos, I do seem to have a pretty good hand fairly often. So I always offer my opponents to, if they want, to cut my deck. But hey ho, yep, so it's a pretty good hand. And the drawback of having good hands is that you can't really blame your cards if you lose. But at the same time, having all your good cards in hand means that your deck tends to get cold, which then ends up draining your hand. So it seems like I never get to use these amazing cards for the things that you'd want to use them for. What can I say? I'm just bad, I guess. So I am 7 models to my opponent's 8. I get a pass token. I win the initiative and I give him the first activation. I forget exactly what he moves. It might be in the Scales of Justice. So it's worth talking about my unpack, because I think that's quite important for Kastore's crew. And I in fact had to think about this before the game and write it down and follow my instructions during the game. because this is my first time ever playing this crew. I've not played the game in years. I basically haven't played any tabletop war game in years, apart from a couple of recent Guild Ball games. So I am super rusty. In any case, my first activation is Athorak. He has Faith in Flesh and Regeneration that both go at the start of his activation, and you can choose which one you resolve first. So I'm going to resolve Faith in Flesh to heal Kastore, which overheals him, meaning that he gets a shielded from Eater Kithe, and resolves his own Faith in Flesh to move 2 inches. Since this happened within 4 inches of the Urn Bearer also gets a shield. Athorak then heals up the damage he took from Faith in Flesh with his regen to get back up to full health. I then use Ancient Words on Kastore, relenting the duel, healing Kastore 1, because Kastore can choose not to take damage from friendly attacks. That overheals him, that pushes him, moves him 2 inches, the Urn Bearer gets another shield, and I draw a card. I then find I can't actually move Athorak straight forwards because I've blocked him in with two of my large bases, so then I have to slowly walk back around the fat arse of the Cavern Nephilim, and then he puts up his war stones, which are, I'm using egg markers, basically in that gap between the big wheel and the boxes and barrels, to keep my crew safe from shooting as they move up. Ideally I was looking to put him somewhere by those near barrels and get my wardstone markers a little bit further upfield, but that's all I was able to do. So I think my opponent goes with the Guild Steward, I use my pass token, it looks like the Death Marshals run up a flank, Marathine goes for a walk, I lose a bit of movement trying to get him out of the forest, or it I guess, and just move the Immortal Sword up aggressively because it fears no pain. I imagine the Domador probably went and did something, so then I activated Gwyll, and the idea here is that he is going to just use Decay twice on the Urn Bearer, which he's going to relent, so the Urn Bearer heals, which overheals her, which allows her to push 2 inches, and she gets shielded from her urn, and a shield from Athorak. Gwyll does it again, so another shield, another 2 shields, and then unfortunately I'm out of 4 inches of Kastore, so I wanted to put focus on Kastore, but wasn't in range, so I decided to put focus on the Urn Bearer. The idea here was like maybe she could get into range for a lure, or else she's quite a valuable model, and that might help her with the defense duel if she needs to. So I think the Exorcist moves up to join his Death Marshal friend, and I start going with the Cavern Nephilim. I think I move the one on the right out first, and basically walk. I probably Faith in Flesh something. I Faith in Flesh Kastore for a little move and some more shielded. Then jump him over Athorak, ditch a card for ambush, and then move him over to like lurking behind the big wheel. I think the Lone Rider rides along with Lady Justice, bringing her forwards, and then heads off towards the stash in the top left. My other Cavern Nephilim goes, and I am such an idiot. He is just barely out of severe terrain. There's no reason I shouldn't have put him in that severe terrain. So I have to ditch a card again to get his little push, and then I walk him over, and I think drop a scheme marker, because I'm over the centre line, if it was standard deployment, but I haven't. I forget that it's corner. When you're in corner, the table half is drawn diagonally, so yeah, wasted scheme marker. I think the Lone Marshal then tries to line up a shot on the Cavern Nephilim lurking behind the big wheel, but I think can't quite do it. Wardstones prevent him shooting at Kastore. So if I'm not mistaken, something, and I think it was him, targeted Marathine and blasted on to Kastore, doing like 1 damage. So then my Urn Bearer goes. She uses Faith in the Flesh to overheal Kastore, move him 2 inches forward. I don't know if he was in range to benefit from Athorak's shielded anymore, but he's got enough, and she then sort of just walks forward once, lures Gwyll a bit closer to her, not using her focus, and then dumps the urn on Kastore, dropping her like metric butt ton of shielded. I need to get more tokens for that. And healing him 4 allows him to push again, and gives him focus. And here we've got Lady Justice and Kastore staring at each other down this wild western street. So I forget exactly what Justice does. I think she moves up quite conservatively, like lurking around the corner of the topmost house, and I think maybe does some shots. That might have been what blasted onto Kastore, I can't remember. I don't know the models well enough. But that puts her in gobble range. So Kastore activates. He just strides over the terrain, charges Lady Justice with his blood rush attack, completely forgets to use his focused, and I think between her armor and soulstone usage, he's like doing 1 damage or 2 damage. It's not a lot. I think I get the overheal trigger to push myself back a little bit. Oh yes, right. I charged right up to her and like through her to get the damage for the upgrade, and then from my overhealing, I moved him back a little bit to 2-inch range, and then used Revishal Rampage to steal her away into my crew. I didn't quite know where to put her. I toyed with the idea of dragging her through the hazardous terrain, but as it's a place, she wouldn't have taken damage, and then I'd be like in between a load of guild models. So I brought her back sort of out of the way of any help, tried to sandwich her between the building and Kastore's base. My fear here is that she's just going to leap away and go murder my squishy backline, but I'm pretty sure my opponent's going to want to duel Kastore. So we do this, and then I get Marathine to charge her with the bonus action and just do a little bit more damage. So with no scoring on the first turn, we go into turn 2. So having saved most of my cards from the previous turn, I end up with the God Hand. So with the initiative being pretty important, I think I cheat one of my 13s to ensure I can go, and Kastore basically pounds on Lady Justice, beating all of her soul stones out of her, and you know, I'm sort of hoping she would die, but she didn't. The Marathine gets stuck in again, the Kastore's bonus action. It's really nice, I really like that, basically 4th AP on a master. So feeling a teeny bit vulnerable, Lady Justice goes and jumps back towards her crew, does the thing that gets her like positives and like minimum damage 4 and all that ridiculous stuff, and slams away at Kastore, who also burns through his stones. And it's basically an epic brawl of 2 titans beating the resources out of each other. I'm not going to remember the order of activations here, but I think I go with Marathine, hitting Lady Justice, just trying to heal Kastore back up. I can't remember what goes next. I think maybe the Domador de Cadaveres healed Lady Justice. And then I've got my Cavern Nephilim that was lurking behind the big wheel. And I sort of think, I'm not sure he can take on an Exorcist and a Death Marshal by himself. And I'm pretty sure that whoever wins the centre wins the game. So not really knowing Model's capabilities, I decide to get him in on the action. He ambushes round a little bit, walks, just jogs up past the big wheel and echolocates onto Lady Justice, doing a bit of damage, putting himself in black blood range, blocking potential enemy routes to get onto Kastore. You can see that coffin marker is my opponent sort of measuring bases and seeing if he can wangle through that gap. I'm also putting a body within 2 inches of the stash marker there in the centre to try to prevent my opponent from being able to claim it. I'm not sure what else the guild has done, but Athorak has gone, and between him and the Urn Bearer, he's put a ton of shielding back on the Urn Bearer and set up his little ward stones in front of Kastore, again just like trying to restrict what the guild can fire at him. My understanding is that these are just markers, and anything in between them can't be attacked through unless it's like a scratchy melee attack, which I assume doesn't care about height, and therefore the towering giant that is Kastore is safe behind them. It looks like Gwyll's gone and is again just like pumping Kastore with decays to keep him healthy. The Urn Bearer managed to get herself enough shielded to walk up and dump the urn over Kastore, healing him 4, giving him focus, and undoing all of Lady Justice's good work before basically just double walking up to within 2 inches of Lady Justice, with the idea of providing some hazardous terrain and using her aura to put Lady Justice's first attack on negatives. And I don't care if I'm within black blood range of the Cavern Nephilim, because that will bleeding on her will just give her some more shielded. So we're all happy with that. I think the Pale Rider moved up to try to, I don't know, shoot my Cavern Nephilim or shoot Kastore. I can't remember what his target was, but it allows the Cavern Nephilim to like echolocate onto him, get into marker range, and then like hit him and push the Pale Rider out of marker range. It's so like that, their attack is so good, and the Guild Steward looks like he's jogging up to try to make a nuisance of himself, no doubt. Meanwhile, the Exorcist and the Death Marshal have moved up. The Death Marshal claims the bottom right stash marker, and the Exorcist, seeing the tide turning against the guild in the centre, starts making his way to run in to back up his beleaguered leader. And as we've basically both of us rinsed our hands in our first activations, neither of us have got any cards. The Scales of Justice is just hanging out around the back there. It's worth noting that my opponent thought that he could score for the strategy with markers in his deployments, or like table half, and that's, I believe, why he kept the scribe hanging back so far there. As I said, we haven't played this game in years. I can't remember what the Lone Marshal did. He probably shot at something, but I don't remember it. So the end of turn 2, guilds score 1 for Guard the Stash, no points for Assassinate because Kastore healed back over half health, and the returned scored 1 point for Guard the Stash and 1 point for Assassinate, bringing Lady Justice under half health. So we're both feeling like this next initiative flip could be quite important. So going into turn 3, my opponent cheats in the red joker for the initiative, and yes, I probably would have done the same. And it's sort of at this point where I might mention the upgrades. Like, I really like the idea of having Ancient Pact on my Cavern Nephilim. Having 2+ to initiative, just straight up, and getting that extra bit of card draw that the upgrade gives, it's hard to pass up. And I sort of consciously wanted to try out the inhuman reflexes on Kastore and Marathine, and it did a little bit of damage. I can't remember how many times I managed to charge through enemy models, but I did it some of the times. It wasn't every charge, and I probably remembered the dodge, or like the movement trick if the enemy cheats within 6 of them, about once this game. So really, I'm not sure if taking double Ancient Pact instead of the inhuman reflexes is not the priority. I'll have to play around with it and see. In any case, Red Joker played for the guild, Lady Justice going first. So yeah, if we go back to this picture from the end of last turn, she leaps over the stash marker to behind Kastore, which I think would put her outside of the Urn Bearer's aura anyway, so I'm not so sad that I completely forgot about it, and proceeds to beat on Kastore with everything she's got. So under the onslaught, Kastore burns through his remaining soul stones, preventing 1 damage each time basically. There might have been 1 moderate in there at some point, but it was a bit rough. And quite frankly, I was flipping pretty hot, and it was rinsing both mine and my opponent's hand, but Kastore survived whatever justice could serve him, and now it's time for payback. So as you can see, he'd used his inhuman reflexes to scuttle away at various points, and Lady Justice followed him with charges. Because that's sort of the problem, where if you move out of the melee range of an enemy model, then they can just charge you. So I think the kind of the little scamper or whatever it's called works best. Or like it would work on 1-inch melee models where Kastore can get out of their engagement but still be engaging them with his 2-inch melee, and then that starts to waste their AP. Whereas with the 2-inch melee master, I either stand there or get hit, or at least reposition and get charged. So I have to think more carefully about that. As in another scenario, it might free up the model to go charging off and doing damage somewhere else I'd rather they wouldn't. But in any case, the battered Kastore slaps Lady Justice down, healing up a little bit on some of his triggers, and claims his first scalp. First blood of the game, first blood of his career. And one might imagine that he bellows his triumph to the fractured skies. Felt good. So then he uses his final AP to run the fuck away! Because even though he healed a bit, he is still really badly hurt, and he needs to slink away, lick his wounds, and avoid any more of the guild's merciless attention until he can heal back up a bit. So, what happened next? Well, I'm pretty sure my Urn Bearer is on 1 wound remaining, because one of Lady Justice's attack triggers gave her an extra strike against my Urn Bearer, and she basically nearly 1-rounded her. I think the Pale Rider, I don't know if he took a shot at Kastore, I don't think he did, I think he was considering it, but then Kastore would have had cover from the building he's hiding behind, and I'm not sure if the Pale Rider got out from engagement. He might have, I don't remember. In whatever case, the Pale Rider failed to bring down Kastore, and instead started beating on my Cavern Nephilim, doing some damage, probably giving it some conditions of some kind. My other Nephilim thought that was a bit rude, and also noticed he was now standing in front of all the guild guns. So he scuttled over to the Pale Rider, pushed him out of range of the marker, doing some damage as well. The guild steward went up to him and I think slowed him and did some other conditions. Oh, he dropped a scheme marker. My Cavern Nephilim dropped a scheme marker on his way over to the Pale Rider, and it's at this point I realised where my markers have to be in order to score, and I pretty much realised that scheme is gonna be hard, let's put it that way. I think Marathine moves over and charges the Death Marshal, doing a bit of damage, healing Kastore up. What else goes? I don't know if the Domador did something. I know getting Athorak to activate was a pretty big priority for me, so he might have gone before Marathine. So I don't know the ranges of the guild models very well. I just remember from fighting Hiddlefon that the sort of like guild models were super annoying in how much they could move and shoot. So what I want to do with Athorak is just make sure the guild can't target Kastore and damage him further. So Athorak goes, I think probably Faith in Flesh's Kastore. I think I might be in range. Ancient Words him again to heal him up and draw me a card. Then walks over to within 2 inches of the stash marker and drops his wood markers just to block line of sight to all my guys, so that the guild can't shoot through at us. So again, I don't really remember the order of activations, but basically the Exorcist moved up, and I don't know if he was hitting Gwyll this turn or not. He might have been, and then Gwyll has moved to deny the guild that stash token by putting 2 models within 2 inches of it. The Death Marshal has abandoned his post on the bottom right stash marker in order to try and reinforce the centre. And again, my opponent thinks that at this point that his Scales of Justice is holding and able to score for that rear stash marker. I don't know if he would have chosen to do this had he realised how the scoring works. I was a bit surprised he was doing this, and I did ask him if he was sure. But hey ho, these things happen. I feel like Gwyll moved in after these guys had moved up and attempted to like hit one of the marshals to blast onto the others, and I can't remember the attack method. The lone marshal found himself in a bit of an awkward position, so I think he ended up kind of pushing along, moving up, going in base to base with that scheme marker that I dropped down, and I think shooting at one of the Nephilim. And I think actually one of my Cavern Nephilim at the top left there was really badly hurt. Once again pushed the Pale Rider away from the marker, and then managed to get over to drop a scheme marker down 10 inches away from the other one and on my opponent's table half. So 1 more marker to go. So at the end of this turn no one scores any points, because although the Neverborn hold the top left stash marker, I now need to hold a second one in order to score my second point, and the same is true from the guild. And Kastore has healed back up above his half health thanks to the ministrations of his henchmen and Marathine's blood drinking, so the guild do not score for Assassinate. And they have given up on the load 'em up scheme. They know it's not happening. So here we go into turn 4. There's my hand, bit more of a normal hand there, and the action kicks off in the top left corner. So basically, I forget who goes first. The Cavern Nephilim are hanging on against the Pale Rider. They keep dropping down, taking damage, but they're healing back up with their lovely regen, and basically they're just beating the snot out of each other. I debated trying to get one of the Cavern Nephilim away, like run away into the backfield to try to get a second marker, but I'm pretty sure the guild will just shoot me. I don't have the AP really to get over there and 10 inches away from any of my other markers to drop the marker this turn. So I decided just to try to out-muscle them, and they give it a good go. The Pale Rider is pretty badly hurt now. The Scribe's taking ping damage from the Black Blood. I say the Scribe, the guild steward. Kastore's basically biding his time. I want him to heal up more before he goes in, and I'm really just trying to outweight the lone marshal. So Athorak goes, puts some Ancient Words damage onto Death Marshal, I feel, taking him down to his last wound. Puts his ward stones in front of the lone marshal, just to stop him shooting into my Nephilim and make him have to like commit. Just make it awkward for him to help out in either off against the Cavern Nephilim or force him to come back towards the centre of the table where we might be able to overpower him. And I deliberately move him a little bit out of the way of Gwyll, because I had stupidly placed Gwyll within Blackblood range of Athorak, and I just needed to to correct that error. So I think he was able to use his Faith in Flesh regen ability to move out of the way and then use his AP to attack. And that is what happened there. I think the Exorcist tried to take down Gwyll, badly hurt him, but couldn't finish the job, and Gwyll decay blasted both of the Marshals off the board, with a bit of help from Marathine coming to finish them off and heal Kastore up a little bit more. Scribe has decided to get back into the action. I don't know what the Domador's doing. I think we forgot to activate it this turn. So feeling a bit healthier, Kastore goes in against the Lone Rider. I debated going in for the Pale Rider. The Pale Rider is very hurt. I felt we could probably finish him off, but he's got a ton of fate tokens, which would be reducing my damage, and it's possible Kastore wouldn't have been able to kill him. He's got like 4 wounds or something, and Kastore, he could have maybe... I could have missed an attack, or he could have reduced the damage down a couple of times to 1 each time. I wasn't sure I could get it, and I wouldn't have been within... I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been able to get within 2 inches of the stash market anyway to guarantee scoring the point. It might have been the thing to do to go after the Pale Rider. I went after the Lone Marshal instead, just trying to make it difficult for him to, like, basically put some damage on him, set him up for death, and make it awkward for him to hurt my little henchman or get involved in the Nephilim tussle. I was also considering relocating the Marshal maybe into the severe terrain and getting myself next to that stash marker, but I think I felt I needed to do some damage and maybe managed to block one of my attacks. So at the end of the turn, things look like this. The Marshal managed to slip away from Kastore's grasp, get through the wardstones, and punch my poor Cavern Nephilim. They're both pretty badly hurt now, bleeding all over the Pale Rider and the Steward. And we go into the final turn. That is my hand. Nice double joker. I want to say the guild get the initiative. I want to say the Pale Rider goes and finishes off both my Nephilim. Sad days. They put up a good fight. Kastore then goes, charges through the Domador, doing some damage. He then rampages to push her back towards the top right stash marker, gets in range, and then finishes her off with his final attack. I use his bonus action to make Marathine charge the Lone Marshal, and Marathine kills him, healing Kastore. And I think that's where we called it, because it was getting late and we needed to get trains, etc. So extrapolating what could have happened, there's a decent chance Marathine kills the Pale Rider. I think he was on 1 wound left, but the Steward is still in scoring, still significant, still scoring. Gwyll and Athorak are in a little bit of an awkward position, so Athorak would like to be able to run over... He could run 12 inches, or maybe even if he's... I can't remember what his damage was like, but if he could Faith in Flesh move to then run 12 inches, he might be able to get to that bottom right stash marker, which could enable Gwyll to move forwards and essence transfer some health from Athorak to Kastore, aiming for the trigger that allows him to drop a scheme marker. So if I could do that, that's a big if, because I don't know what my hand's like and I don't know what the ranges are, but it's possible that I could have Athorak and Kastore claiming 2 of the stash markers, which will score me a point. And if Gwyll could get the trigger to drop the marker from the essence transfer, I'd be able to pick up my 3 markers or spread their forces. Let's say Athorak can't make it to that stash marker, and I don't have a card that can reliably get Gwyll to do that marker drop trigger. I don't think Athorak can charge the scales due to that stash marker blocking his trajectory. So I think I'd just stay on my marker and pump Ancient Words into the scales to soften him up, or if he's got his defense... I don't understand his defensive trigger, but if there's something that would badly damage Athorak, I'd probably just leave it. And I know Gwyll is a double walk from range to the bottom right stash marker because I measured it. So I would just do that. So it's sort of like a quibble between could I have had the resources to score, spread them out or not, and let's just assume not. So at the end of the game, the guild score 1 point for guard the stash, no points for assassinate, no points for load 'em up. The Neverborn score 2 points for guard the stash, 2 points for assassinate, and no points for spread them out, making this game a victory point crazy 4-1 to the Neverborn. So looking back on this, I'm pretty sure I'm playing the healing mechanics right, I'm pretty sure I'm playing the shielding right. It is just a surprising amount of both. Like the amount of healing I was able to pump into Kastore was pretty good, and the amount of healing I was able to generate between the Athorak and the Urn Bearer was honestly very surprising. Like that shielding stacked up I mean, not quickly, I guess. It was over like multiple activations, but you can get a lot of shielding on that Urn Bearer. I definitely made tons of mistakes. I kept forgetting to use focus. I kept forgetting Kastore's terrifying. I kept forgetting whatever it's called, the scuttle ability on the upgrade. My placement of models around terrain was dire. I choked up my forces in the deployment zone, and kept forgetting to put the Cavern Nephilim touching severe terrain. Looking at this again, spread them out was clearly a mistake, or at least I played it badly. It was very hard to get enough AP out of my Cavern Nephilim to drop those markers. I think it could have been doable. You know, they hang around the stash marker, punch enemy models out of their engagement and away from the stash marker, and drop a marker. For my scheme, that sort of requires them to be on each flank rather than both grouped up together. Yeah, it's not that they couldn't have done it, it's just a bit difficult. Would have been nice to have like kidnapped something with Kastore and run into the enemy's backfield, but with Assassinate in the pool, you just can't do that. The guild have got too much firepower. They'd bring him down if he was alone. There wasn't really anywhere I could go that would be out of their range. I do think, given the terrain, if I'd thought more carefully, secret meetup on one of the riders and on one of my Cavern Nephilim would have been pretty doable, given those stash markers, given the terrain near them on the flanks, and given Kastore's ability to rampage models into them, or my Nephilim's ability to push them around. I think that would have at least been more doable than the scheme marker mission. Anyway, that was the game. I had an amazing time. I'm so glad to be back playing Malifaux. It feels so good. And I had a total blast with this Kastore crew. There's a ton of things to think about, a ton of admin and knowledge about all the crew's overlapping abilities, but I found it really fun. Kastore was a beast, Marathine is such a fun totem, Cavern Nephilim are excellent models. The Urn Bearer I feel I could get more out of, but she certainly did her job in terms of healing Kastore and giving him focus. And it was a cute idea to try to throw her into the fray. Maybe I should have held back a bit with her. Athorak, nearly MVP. Kastore obviously did massive work. Cavern Nephilim were heroes in their own right, but Athorak and his ward stones, his healing, his card draw. By the way, I forgot Gwyl's card draw every turn. But yeah, I don't know why why the internet is so down on Athorak. Like he's such a good model. The ward stones for their range, for such a cheap cost, absolutely game changing. On top of Etta Kithe, or however you pronounce that, bubbling out the healing, helping models reduce initial flak as we cross the table. Ancient Words is actually a great attack. It was a bit unclear when I would ever use his combat staff. Maybe if a slow is clutch, setting up Kastore, or the drawn to Wardstone's trigger to get extra movement, but I think Ancient Words, you're doing that most of the time. It's a good attack. Front of card, excellent. Back of card feels like it's missing an ability, but once you start actually using him, he doesn't need it. So yeah, super good job, Athorak. Don't listen to the haters. Gwyll was a bit more understated than I thought he'd be. I did get the blasts on the decay, and that did actually kill or nearly kill models. I was mostly decaying my friendly models for heals. Giving out focus for free was really nice, would have been if I'd remembered to actually use it. The other bonus action to look at the cards and discard them, etc., I think it's going to take a bit of experience to know when that's the right one to use. And it's nice to have that flexibility with the essence transfer for longer range healing. I really like it as a surprise marker drop. I didn't notice any opportunities to use the count as overhealing even if you have an aura. And honestly, this game at least, I'd rather have had the healing than the movement. But I'm sure there'll be other circumstances where it will be more relevant. But yeah, I really liked this crew. I think it's a really nice core to learn the return keyword with. So we're probably going to end up running it a bunch more times. But with that, I will thank my opponent again. He is such a nice guy, such a pleasure to play. I hope we'll make this a regular thing and maybe throw in some Guild matches so he can kick my ass. But if you made it to the end, thank you to you as well. I hope you found something of interest. And until the next one, take care.